Okay, so this is the January 5th, 2026 meeting of the Housing Advisory Committee. And we have in attendance Lauren Sardi, Kim Britton, Leslie Higgins-Biddle, Tom Mabry, Alex Hutchinson, and we have Hiram Peck joining us via Zoom, and we have Carol Goldberg joining us via Zoom as well. So with that, I am going to ask that hopefully people have had a chance to review the minutes from our last meeting. Does anybody need a minute to do further review?
Move to approve.
All right.
Second.
We have a motion to approve. Those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained. Okay, minutes are approved. So we can move directly into, we have no guest speaker. Unless Carol, you would like to speak, you could be a guest speaker. But it was suggested at our last meeting that we've been doing a lot of input. We've had people coming in, talking to us and getting various perspectives about housing and what other towns are doing. So this would be a great opportunity for us to kind of reflect and talk about specific opportunities, actions that we may want to take. And I just want to do a quick refresh about the mission of the committee. Our primary focus is about developing, doing the legwork and getting information to provide input and advice and recommendations to planning and zoning. So with that in mind, I mean, we've been talking about community engagement. We've been talking about engaging with developers. We've been talking about what other towns are doing, which I think is good background. It's been very helpful for me. But at the end of the day, our audience is going to be the Planning and Zoning Commission and the Board of Selectmen. That's ultimately what we're focused on doing. So with that, I will be, once Planning and Zoning has met or later this week, I'll be reaching out. I'm not sure who's going to be chairing, but I'll reach out to the chair of the commission and suggest that we try to find some mutual dates within a relatively near future, hopefully this month, but we'll see. When we can schedule a joint meeting between our committee and the commission. And I see that as being a twofold set of objectives. One is to let them know, what have we been doing? What have we learned? What are we focused on? So hopefully what comes out of this meeting becomes sort of a focal point for that part of the discussion. And then to talk to them about what's top of mind to planning and zoning. What do they want to know about housing? How can we be of best assistance to them as they think about this issue and try to make sure that we're at least somewhat going down the same road, that we're not going one way and they're thinking something else. But again, they're so new, I don't think they're thinking about it right now. But I do know one of the members, Bob Harrison, he's very interested in forming planning and zoning. I've had many discussions with Nancy Held-She, who's the current chair, so I know she's very interested in it. So I expect that we can have a pretty productive discussion pretty quickly on it. So that kind of sets the table, and I'll shut up and I'm going to open it up to any member of the committee that wants to either make comment and or suggestion or wherever you want to go.
I have something to say, believe it or not, which is that I remembered this. And I went back and dug it out. This is what was handed out, I suspect, 6 months ago or something.
Yeah, it was.
And I may be wrong because I don't ever remember we ever talked about it. And I'm sorry, Hiram, I'm holding up this piece of
It's-
paper
it's,
titled
uh,
Bethany zoning regulations.
It's the excerpt from our regs, Hiram.
Okay,
Yeah.
yep.
And I don't know if you created it or you did it with Alex or Alex did it, but the reason I'm mentioning it is it had all these things on here that
I know.
I had questions related to, can we permit tiny homes and do better job of streamlining accessory apartments, for instance? Can we, I'm not a planning and zoning person, but when I read these things, I feel it's important for us to have at least looked at all this
Yep.
and kind of circled around with you, Hiram, to be sure that the detail of what might be adjusted has been covered or at least recommended. And I see that as an important job for the committee to do. But again, I'm not a P and Z person and I don't know where this exactly came from,
Right.
Alex, can I just ask that you identify who's speaking? The owl isn't
Oh, I'm
pointing
sorry.
to each
That,
of
that
you.
was that was Leslie.
Oh, is
Oh,
it?
hi,
So
Leslie. Thank you.
Is the owl not picking up the speaker?
No,
Oh, that's too bad.
so
Is it
sorry, I can't tell from your voices yet who's speaking.
Yeah, no, it's okay. Yeah.
I don't know if,
That's muted.
yeah.
It's making noises. Doesn't sound like an owl.
It's muted.
Ooh,
It's supposed to follow whoever's speaking.
Yeah, hey, Alex, you might want to go to audio.
Oh, you know what?
Yeah. there it is.
Meeting owl camera.
Let's see if this works better.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go.
oh, that's it. Thank you.
I didn't have the video set up correctly. So
Okay.
thanks for the input on that.
And Hiram, I don't know if this is helpful. I just sort of feels like it was a piece we
Well-
never quite focused on,
Well, this one pager came from me, so I went through the regs and looked for, my feeling is that let's start with low hanging fruit. Let's not go to the planning and zoning commission saying, you need to change your zoning regs to do X, Y, and Z. What's in the regs right now that can be utilized to try to promote more housing? So that was the intent here.
Mhm.
Hiram, back in August, you put together a couple of pages of things, and I don't know if you want to walk through that, but it's talking about ADUs, duplex, short-term rentals, that sort of thing.
Right. Yeah, I don't have it in front of me right now, Alex, but I can tell you that I think that one aspect of proceeding forward would be for this group to say, we'd like to proceed on these items. And we get sort of the approval from the Planning and Zoning Commission to do that. We certainly can do that. It's really not very difficult. We just have to make sure that there's some sort of consensus that people want to work forward on those particular items. I think there are several of them, like the ADUs, the smaller units, the smaller homes, the obviously lower density, obviously residential uses. All those things can be easily done. We just have to make sure that we're on good solid ground there. So maybe what we can do is put those things in a package when we go to the P&Z and talk to the commission and say, do you agree with moving forward on these things? Once we get their blessing, it's really not very difficult to do at all.
Okay.
So Leslie.
It satisfies me. This is an area.
putting
we
that
haven't
out.
done. Yeah.
Was there anything that you were particularly focused on? or-
No, I just thought it was something we should try to do and address.
Right.
People ask me, can I do a tiny home? And I say, no, I don't think so, but I don't know.
Are
And
there
so-
things, I'm sorry, are there things in the new bill that addresses things like tiny homes?
No, I don't believe so. Not
No,
not-
Well,
that,
did-
that bill is so large. It's going to pertain mostly to much more urbanized communities. I think what we really need to do is sort of decide where we want to go ourselves and go in that direction ourselves. It's also a fairly long horizon for some of these things. End of 26, 27, 28, there are a variety of deadlines that we don't have to worry about right now. But I think if we're going to make some progress in the next 6 months to a year, I think we can pick out a number of really good things that the town does want to do. I think the small homes is really a great one to do. I think the ADUs is really a great thing to do. I don't suggest that we get involved in sewer and water lines at this point in time for a variety of reasons.
Yay,
100%.
agreed.
I think that that would bring
Yeah.
out a lot of people that are really opposed to this whole issue, and I think that that would be a misstep. So,
I mean, even if there was acceptance and people generally thought it was a great idea, the time horizon for planning on that, that's a minimum 3 to 5 year time horizon to be able to go out and get the funding, the commitment, the plans, and actually do anything. So it's not something, it's something that could be looked at. I'm sure planning and zoning will be dealing with it. I know the Economic Development Commission is looking at different types of things. But my feeling would be more having planning and zoning, looking at what's available right now, but what if water and sewer came in? How are we going to deal with that? But I don't think it's a good use of the commission's time at this point to start speculating on how they want to handle that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And from my point of view, water and sewer, Hiram, is a much broader issue than housing.
yeah,
It
Yes.
affects the character of a community and all kinds of development changes, of which housing is a relatively often minor thing. So
Yeah,
to
absolutely.
me, it's not driven by housing per se.
Not to
I think-
mention, but I think anybody that's on that don't they get assessed part of the,
Oh,
I don't know
yeah.
if it's the cost or.
It's a big thing.
I don't know, but I
Yeah.
would imagine it
It's a big
probably
thing.
goes into the
Yeah.
assessment or the assessed
Yeah.
value of the property
Yeah.
that will go up because of the,
That's so much broader than our function.
oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I think we start small and we keep it, Bethany, scaled. I think is the
Yeah.
best way to start it, to move forward with some approval on some of these things. I had a bunch of other suggestions later on when we get down to different places we might want to visit and so on, Alex. But I think that looking at these regs and saying to the commission, look, we'd like to move forward on some of these changes. If we can get some basic permission to go forward on those, I think that would be a number one sort of step forward.
So, I mean, does it make sense? So we have currently 3 special district regulations on the books. We have a elderly housing district, we have a housing opportunity development district, and we have attainable housing overlay zone. The housing opportunity development district is specific and unique right now to Rocky Corner.
Right.
And that I do remember, I wasn't part of P and Z, but I remember that was part of the compromise at the time, that because when they offered their proposal, the pushback was pretty severe. And one of the big issues was essentially any parcel of land that met that set of parameters could be designated as that sort of a zone, which meant people were just worried that we're going to be flooded
Yeah.
with these types of things. So, I mean, it's not that it's not available, but planning and zoning would actively have to designate another
Yeah.
district as a housing opportunity development. So within those 3, Hiram, are there any, is that a good place to start, number one? And if so, is there a particular aspect of that we should be looking at?
I think that a couple things. First of all, that housing opportunity development zone, the Rocky Corner, was under 8-30G of the state statutes. And so that's why that was put forward that way. That when it first came in, it wasn't an 8-30G.
But we were on motion sensor, we weren't moving, so the lights went off.
So anyway, so the attainable housing overlay zone is a possibility, Alex. I also think that there's also a good possibility that we could create another zone or small lots, for example, in certain areas where that might be appropriate, where small houses and smaller houses, rather, not just tiny houses, but smaller houses and smaller lots might be appropriate. So there's a zone that we could put together for that as well. So I think there are still some alternatives that we don't have looked at right now in our regulations. I don't recommend that we mess with the existing zones a lot because people are going to get upset by that. I think that when you start talking to people and they say, well, we're going to change the zones, they say, well, what happens to my 1 or 2 acre lot? What are you going to do to me? I think we got to be very careful about that. So I think that setting up another zone that could land in a specific place maybe we find out, for example, that there's some land that either the land trust has or the regional water agency has or somewhere that they might be willing to somehow provide for one of these developments and set up a specific zone that would be appropriately set up for that density in that area. So I think something like that could work, and that would be pretty easy to create as well. So some special zone like that.
So, to that end, um, the working with planning and zoning about something like that. And again, I'm just sort of focused on one that I think resonates with a lot of people, the elderly housing district.
Yep.
If we were to talk about, so we do have a map here, you know the map, Hiram, I think you've got one of the maps, right?
Yes.
We've got
Yeah.
a map of the town. So
Yep.
that is something I want to take a look at, but that's one of the things I'm looking at, which is if we look at a particular parcel, let's say that's owned by the town. And that is part of the discussion with planning and zoning to say, hey, we think this parcel, if it's designated to be elderly housing district, it starts to make it easier to have the conversation. You don't have to change anything on the books. Is that correct?
Well, you don't have to change anything until you decide to actually land the zone. I mean, we can create the zone at whatever density we want. The density would be created based upon what the land's capability is. So septic and wells is going to have to be the primary configuration, obviously. So I
Right.
think that if there is a piece of land, another sort of group of people aside from the town-owned land, there might be churches in town that have land that they might be interested in getting involved in as well. So things
Assumption
like that.
Church
But it
has
would
a
be
precedent. That is
pretty,
cool.
yeah, it'd be
Well,
pretty easy to create that zone though.
yeah, I mean, am I recalling correctly that the two vacant league fields across from middle school are
Owned by the
church-owned?
Assumption Church.
Church, yeah.
Both of them are.
I think both of them are. I'm pretty sure both of them
I'm
are.
pretty sure the one that's on the northeast corner,
Yeah.
right where Luke Hill wraps around. I think that's theirs. I'm
Yeah,
not sure
I
about
think,
the
I
other.
think they
field.
both are.
Okay.
Can I ask a question? Hiram,
Sure.
under the current fact that we have a zone called elderly or something like that, if, what I hear Alex talking about is looking at the actual map and
Mhm.
saying, let's plunk it down there. But am I right, and I could be wrong, so I'm asking, that if I'm a developer and I want to do some, you know, housing for people over the age of 65, I'm making it up, can I come to the town as it is right now and say, here's my site, I would like you to put the zone on it? Or
Yes.
does, you can do that, you don't have to have it designated on a map by the town?
Well, if they have a particular parcel picked out, and assuming they would have some sort of agreement with the property owner first.
Right, assuming all that privately,
Yeah.
what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So
That's true.
that's the other way to use these zones, is to have it follow a developer and a development proposal as opposed to a map. I'm not saying one's better than the other, but I'm just wondering if we never get around to designating an area, it doesn't mean you can't still use that zone, right? If
No,
you are.
yeah, that's absolutely right. I think that there are a variety of different ways that they can work. The developer could come in and say, got this arrangement with the landowner. Here's what I'd like to do here, and let's land this zone there. The other way is if the town says, well, we have this parcel here, and here's what we'd like to see here. We could actually send out, requests for proposals for people to develop that land in a way that we thought was most appropriate.
All right, so we can go either way. Okay,
Yes, absolutely. And
thank you.
The commission has a lot of authority with regard to whether that zone is approved or not, what it looks like with the density and all the things that go along with that as well. So commission and the town retains a lot of control over that as well. Absolutely.
And can you remind me how that's not spot zoning her, what the difference in definition is?
Yeah, years ago, spot zoning was really talked about a lot more than it is today. I think what's happened with the affordable housing and different housing characteristics and different types of zones is spot zoning is really looked at. It's not as strictly looked at as it used to be. If there's more than one parcel involved and there's more than a small, like it's not just a couple of acres, it's not going to be typically considered spot zoning. Typically, towns have given a lot of latitude as long as it's done fairly, open hearing, and it's done correctly. There's a lot of latitude that's been granted there. People will talk about spot zoning, but very seldom now, Kim, as opposed to years ago.
Thank you.
So Hiram, if we didn't want to be so specific, it has to be elderly or fitting one of these, a very narrow criteria. What would it take if we wanted to try to identify, and again, let's say on the map, we identify a town-owned parcel of land that would fall within the normal 2 acre zoning. But we wanted to look at the potential of inviting developers to come in and providing a proposal for putting 4 smaller units on, again, meeting all septic water requirements and everything. Does that require any sort of special designation, or can that be simply a special permit that they can come to planning and zoning on?
We probably would need to rezone that parcel, Alex, for whatever use we wanted to do. For example, one other town that I'm familiar with now had a property that was they could have a house on it with 5 bedrooms or 6 bedrooms. And so they said, we really don't want to do that. So they rezoned the parcel so that they could have 4 or 5 small homes with either single bedrooms or 2 bedroom houses on the same amount of land, same amount of water, same amount of septic, and it worked out really, really well. So we could redesignate that, land that zone on that property, and then it would be compliant with the zone that we set up for that property. It would be pretty easy to do once we decided how we wanted to do that.
I don't want to shift the conversation completely, but what I kept thinking about listening to that is, in my experience in affordable housing development in the past, the last thing in the world you want to do is go to a town for publicly owned land. Because the sense that people have about what kind of housing that is so vitriolic in general and a community dynamic.
Yep.
And a publicly owned piece of property typically has to be approved it can't be transferred without public approval. So from my point of view, from that background, I'm not saying anything about what we should or shouldn't do as a committee or P&Z shouldn't do, but it makes me less interested in designating parcels and more interested in letting good proposals come forward that have traction and can work or don't.
Yeah.
So that's, I guess, and that gets me into the community engagement discussion we were in the last time, which I kind of want to avoid completely personally.
How do you create that opportunity? Because I agree, if it could be done privately between a private owner and a developer, and they bring it to planning and zoning, I think it makes it much more manageable.
Yep.
But how do you create the awareness that if I'm a property owner, that I could do that, number one, and do it in a way that may benefit? I mean, as a property owner, you're going to look at it. I think my property is worth $500,000. I don't really care whoever buys it, if they want to put 1 house, 3 houses, I don't care, or maybe they do, but how do we get that awareness out so that a potential landowner who wants to sell or work with a developer knows that's a possibility, versus all I know is single family house, 2 acres. So that's what we're going to be dealing with.
Let me make a suggestion for you. We had talked about different mechanisms a while ago too. Don't forget that and I believe it still should be paramount in our minds, that the private nonprofit organization, we really need to sort of focus on trying to sort of get that up off the ground and get that sort of formulated, because that's a vehicle that can talk to a lot of different private property owners about whether they're interested in participating in this or not. So private property owners, as opposed to town property, might be the way to do that. And I think the mechanism is a group of people that are associated with that private nonprofit might be the way to start that discussion, Alex. So whether that discussion starts between a private nonprofit and a church organization, or a land trust, or a private property owner, or the water authority, or whatever, I think that's how those discussions start, rather than having the big public discussion that Leslie was talking about trying to avoid. I think that's the way to do it, is that private organization that just very subtly, very carefully and sensitively approaches those people that might have land that they're interested in developing that way.
So this would be sort of the equivalent of a land trust model for conservation purposes?
Well, it's the one that Larry was talking about when he came in, or some of those ones up in Litchfield County. They're just their own small, single-purpose 501(c)(3) organizations.
No, I get that, but in terms of what the nonprofit would be doing, I mean, I kind of view that.
They would be
that's
the
probably what the
developer.
land trust does, is they say, we're the land trust, here's our mission.
Yeah.
And they reach out to potential property property owners
Right,
who may want
right,
to sell.
right. It's a similar kind of thing, yeah.
Right.
And I must say, I've always used that as an example when I was a developer, that, land trusts take property out of the market for a good public purpose. And
Right.
that's what a nonprofit little group building 4 or 5 homes is doing.
I've never
So
thought about it
you
that
just take it out of the
Yeah.
market for the social purpose.
Right.
And that's the same kind of pattern. But there's less support generally in any community for that use. So that's back to the last time when we were talking with Ben a little bit, because I did feel like we didn't have enough chance to sort of process that whole discussion. And there are 2 ways definitely to go. One way is to try to talk a lot more about what affordable housing is and isn't, sustainable housing, whatever you want to call it. And I just find that a very difficult discussion. I think Bethany next to Woodbridge and everything going on is just I'm not sure I would judge that this is a good time to jump into that discussion with a broad group of people.
Yeah.
But if I'm alone on that, I'm just saying
No,
it so that we get a chance to talk about it,
I agree with you on
So
that.
I don't disagree on the one hand, on the other. If you don't start the discussion sometime, it's gonna happen when a perceived unpopular project
It is.
hits the books.
It is, but it is, Alex, no matter how many good people you talk to in the meantime. And so from a developer's perspective, it's the law or the tools like 830G or whatever, and the good, compelling story that gets you through that, but not convincing the hearts and minds of everybody in the room, because that's just.
I think we're better off to go what you're talking about with a private person with a project versus opening it up to a general discussion, opening that can of worms that's gonna go the way. Do you remember the meeting about the outdoor wood burning furnaces?
Mhm.
Shut it down right at
Yeah,
the,
but
Oh, really?
we never even got to
yeah.
the point where
it was even
discussion.
discussed.
Yeah. Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, that
Even that.
did not
So-
get handled well, but
No, but I think,
Yeah,
Yeah,
You know,
would you
looking-
may I be allowed to say something?
sure.
please.
I just want, along the lines you're talking about, I have had, since I've been there for a month, 2 separate individuals call me. One person has indicated they have 20 acres that they want to sell. Not right now, but they want to sell. Another person, all the way he said it to me was, I have more than 20 acres. And they called me because they're very afraid of, 8002, and their words to me were, should I hold on to these, or if I sell them, will the state come in and take the land and make this all affordable housing? So, people clearly don't understand this. But it may be, though, the reason I'm saying this to you, and thank you for allowing me to speak, is that there are private property owners in Bethany, clearly, who are of the age and the time in their lives they're thinking of selling some of this property. And maybe if something is put together, if someone calls me or someone calls one of you, you know, you
Just-
can have that private discussion, or I can say to them, hey, call Kim or Leslie or yeah, any one of you, you know, and say,
Mhm.
to learn about these things and what can happen and what they can do and how they can sell their property. Because to them, they're not going to be the developers. They're looking to sell it. They just want to make sure, because this property is adjacent to where they live, that it is something that comports with Bethany and their own community. So
That's right.
there is something out there exactly along the lines that you're talking about.
Mhm.
I agree. I know, I know of at least one
Yeah,
out there.
I think, from the point of view of a single standalone nonprofit, which might or might not get traction here, if there's enough people interested in doing it, going to talk to one of the ones that's been successful about the way they found the land, then it takes time.
Right.
And it takes a relationship. But sometimes it's a house for sale with an adjacent few acres, and that's all it takes to do one good home ownership for 3 families or something at a reasonable price. So you just don't know, till you get into those level of details.
So you and I had a conversation a little bit before, about, I mean, ideally, I would love to be in a position 1 year from now that it's not necessarily ground has been broken, but there's been identified a potential development. Let's say it's on 2 acres, where a developer wants to come in and do 4 smaller units. We just need to get a couple of small victories out there in terms of showing people, this is what we're talking about. We're not talking about high rises. We're not talking about 100 apartment units. We're not talking about anything like that. But if it's well managed, and again, Hiram has been leading us, planning and zoning, through discussions about what some of these housing, I don't want to say developments, but if we go down this road, what would they look like? And making sure that they're aesthetically appealing, that they're consistent with sort of the look and feel of the town. So people can look at that. Because I think that the first thing people think of when they think of low income housing, they think of brown brick buildings that look like mini prison. They look like the police barracks. I think that's what a lot of people think
Yeah,
of.
I know.
And if we can show them that, no, we're talking about something else. So it's really a matter of
Yeah.
how can we set up the opportunity to create 1 or 2 showcases of here's what the concept is, and this is what we're talking about. I think that's the best way to engage with some of the potential property owners out there that are saying, well, I wouldn't mind having that built next to me, and I would feel good about that. So it may open the door for having more opportunities.
I think that's the more
Yeah.
productive myself.
What I did for the agenda, it's actually later on in the agenda, Alex, but I've sort of gotten an idea of 3 or 4 places that would be really good for the committee and perhaps other people to take a look at as well. We'll put together an itinerary, a trip to take a look at some of these projects that have been built in the Litchfield County area. Leslie, you probably know them well, but Salisbury, for example, there's 2 in Kent. And there's another one in Cornwall that I think people would really, really like the way they look. I think that'd be a great way to do it. And
That would be wonderful.
Were you thinking of Coogman Village and Stewart Farm and?
yes, yeah,
Yeah.
Sarum
Built-
Village in Salisbury,
Yeah.
South Commons and Stewart Farm and Bonnie Brook in Cornwall.
Yeah,
I think those would all be really, really
that'd be terrific.
received. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that would be one of the points of discussion when we do meet with planning and zoning, to say that we're
We should do a
looking
road
to.
trip, guys.
Exactly, we're looking to
Take a day.
organize this. Is that something members of the commission would want to be part of? So that we can try to find a date that's somewhat accommodating to the most people. I wouldn't get paralyzed over it, that if we can't.
Yeah.
Right.
But there is something about when you're there and you see it, you can't help but then be able to answer questions when you're back here with somebody asking you. 'Cause you
Especially in towns that have a similar
exactly the
demographic to
same.
Bethany.
Yeah, Stewart Farm was an old farmhouse with 4 bedrooms and they turned it into, I don't know what it is now, it's maybe 7 apartments, but it's rental, but
Yeah.
it's really nice.
Yeah.
Bonnybrook is elderly only. They're really nice, sweet little things.
You
Are
don't
we
mind?
talking,
Wait a
are-
minute, yeah.
Yes, Tom.
Okay, Tom.
I was just curious to know, because this has come up before, and I still am a great fan of the idea of an audio and video tour of these kinds of projects that
Hmm.
could be held by us. I don't know if we have access to people that are very capable in creating that kind of thing that could go along with us.
You suggested that maybe an Amity student.
Amity student.
There might be, that's a good reminder, Tom, an Amity student maybe, or somebody who wants to do it,
Terrific.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I think it would make a lot of sense, and if we can do it in such a way, it's something that can be shown to members of the community if
Right.
they're asking questions. This
If
is
we
what
wanna
we're
open
talking
that
about.
door, right?
Sure.
What were you saying, Lauren? You were about to say,
Sorry, Lynn. Yeah.
Yeah, no,
what's your gut?
so I mean, I love the idea of these like smaller projects, and I completely agree with you, Alex, that like we need these sort of like small victories, right? Like 100%. I personally, I'm really hung up, to be honest
Yeah.
with you, on the last meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think the thing that I felt kind of like walking away from the conversation was that I felt like I was actually like, I don't want to, I was like on the same side as people, and yet
Yeah.
it felt like I was kind of like the assumption about me, or for whatever reason, was that I was like not. And I find that really problematic, because my concern is that we need to be really, and when I say we, I mean anyone who is in favor of implementing affordable housing.
Mhm.
I feel like there was just a lack of humility a little bit in terms of kind of like what we are potentially up against. And I think that sort of,
Mm.
I think the wrong path, and I feel this deeply in my gut. The wrong path is to associate ourselves in any way with what is going down in Woodbridge right now.
Mhm.
Mhm.
That is not like that.
That's not what we want.
That's not what we want.
Mhm.
And I think, and we've had, I mean, we've had another month to see how this is unfolding.
Not good.
It's not going,
Not good.
not getting better.
not-
Has it, the temperature's up?
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
I think so, personally.
The one on Fountain Street
But, oh, on the Fountain Street one.
past
Yeah,
the next, and the other one has a meeting, I think, in January.
That's the
Yeah.
beacher.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And like, I can understand why people
Sure.
are upset, to be very honest
Mhm.
with you.
Mhm.
Like, I'm not in favor of that. Like, I think the entire process in terms of how it all kind of came to be was not democratic, you
Mhm.
know?
Right.
And so my main concern is that I worry that we have this adjoining town, like, we're all a part of the same district, and yet, this sort of like, oh, well, we'll just do it like how we did in Woodbridge, and it'll be fine, and like, we'll push it through and we'll figure it out. And I'm like, that's not appropriate for here.
That's right.
Even to the point of districting all the schools. I read that somewhere too,
Yeah.
was one of the approaches they were trying to take on how to make this work for
Yeah,
the schools, because Beach is already
yeah,
overextended.
yeah. I mean, yeah, there are like, there are just,
Right.
like, it's not problematic to actually address these very valid concerns.
That's right.
You know what I mean? And so that's all I'm trying to say, is that I think we need to be super strategic about this, and that I feel like kind of charging through like that is just not the way we want to do this.
Agree.
And I'm not saying I'm not against it.
We know it.
Right.
Like,
So let me ask, just to get,
Oh.
if we were to try to go down the road where we got a private landowner talking to a developer with the understanding that instead of a traditional single-family house in 2 acres, there may be receptivity to doing 4 units.
Mhm.
Are you saying that shouldn't go through the normal, just bring it to planning and zoning and let it go through? There has to be more discussion on that, or?
No, well, to me, I feel like if you are a private homeowner, then you have the right to do what you would like to do on your own property. So that's my personal opinion about that.
Mhm.
And so if you have to go to P and Z for that, then okay. I feel like there is just a lot less that you can do when it's a private homeowner. But I think that the way that it went down in Woodbridge, I was not that kind. I could be wrong.
No, it wasn't that way.
Okay, 'cause
No.
I'm like, I don't
It
think it
was
was that way
not
at
that
all.
way. No, it was a lawsuit to start everything against the town.
Well, there you go, so no, I'm not against
Okay.
that at all, I think, and nor could I mean, I could be, but you know what I mean? Like, I'm kind of
Yeah.
like, if somebody wants to do,
Well, so I'm just trying to balance sort of two different tensions here, what
Mhm.
you're saying.
You know, I think
And-
we're saying the same thing though, Alex, because
Yeah.
honestly, right, Lauren,
I think we are.
I think that what happened unfortunately at the last meeting was, and it was partly because Ben was remote and partly because he gets incredibly enthusiastic about what he's talking about, but he didn't listen.
Yeah.
He didn't
Correct.
hear what Lauren was saying, or even what some of the rest of us were trying to say
Right.
about the character of our town. And if someone who says, go ahead and do community engagement is someone who isn't listening, it sends the opposite message. And that's what I took away, which
Yeah.
was, whoa, let's talk among ourselves. Let's listen to
100%
each
thing.
other.
Yep.
But not necessarily do the yay rah rah big public display thing, because that's not where this town is now. And I don't actually think it's very productive, frankly.
We've seen how that goes.
Yeah, doesn't work.
I think that the discussion we've had up till now, considering uh, champion the smaller scale is because it's scalability. Uh, Towns that have found small scale wins and get that on video and make that a selling point to the homeowner, to the public as needed, can counter the fears that are never going to disappear from forced feeding like happened in Woodbridge.
Yeah, well said, Tom. Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, I would say it was multiple people, not just one singular person. That's why I can't even name names because it was more than one,
Right.
But I mean, even things like, and I think they're incredibly well intentioned, and they're, like things like bringing in a high school student to do something of it. Like, I mean, personally speaking,
Mhm.
there's no way I would let, I mean, if one of my kids were in high school, there's no way I would let my kid do it. Like, there's no way,
Mhm.
just to protect them,
Mhm.
because they are going to be, I mean, they're adults,
Excoriated
Okay.
on social media for having done something like
Forever.
that. Yeah, right.
and I mean, people can do what they want. I'm just saying that, like, I would never allow my kid to do that. And
Yeah.
and not because I don't think it's civically aligned, not because I don't think it's like,
Mhm.
would send a good like, that's not what I'm trying to say. It's that I also know the human condition and I
Mhm.
just would not put my
Yeah.
kid
Yeah.
on the front line of that. You know what I'm saying?
Well, and the other alternative, Tom, and we can figure this out, is if we do take a road trip up there to the places that Hiram has identified, they all have wonderful pictures. They all have their own films that are wonderful that they've done, and we could decide to ask to use
Mhm.
some of them at some point. And that's a way out of what you're talking
Or,
about.
I mean, we all have phones. It's just a matter of.
Yeah.
A
Sure, we can
30
work that one
second,
out. We can work
you
that
know,
out.
here's where we are, here's what it looks like.
Yeah.
Maybe talking to the developer or somebody who but
Oh,
I'm not
definitely.
talking about a 20-minute, 30-minute video, but I'm talking about maybe a 3-minute clip that you can show of 3 towns in Litchfield, very similar to Bethany.
Mhm.
Here are
All
3
water and
different,
sewer.
right,
I mean, all water and septic, yeah.
right.
So that it's our choice and not forced.
Yeah, yeah.
No, that's the big thing.
Yep.
Okay, so keep my eye on time. We've got about 10-15
I
minutes.
feel better. Thank you for sharing, because I
Yeah,
wasn't
no,
sure how you felt after
And
that
I
last meeting.
hope you didn't feel like I know, I don't know if Ben was the only one that you felt was sort of shutting you out there.
No, I didn't, no. I didn't actually think Ben in particular was like not listening to me in particular. I actually learned a lot from him. And I think that like not necessarily agreeing with someone is a wonderful thing. I think it's important to get different
healthy.
perspectives.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it wasn't, I had no issues. I had no issues with him other than that. I was kind of like, I don't know how well this would fit here.
Mhm.
That was really as far as it went. But
Good.
there were, yeah, there.
It stuck with you.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying there were other conversations that were had,
Mhm.
and I'm using passive,
Mhm.
voice for it, that I was like really sort of like,
Mhm.
are we having this conversation? Like this
Yeah.
isn't, that's all. That's, nobody here.
Yeah, got it.
All right.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Is there a general agreement that trying to get a small victory as our first step makes a lot of sense?
Mhm.
Yes.
Okay. Tom, you agree as well?
Absolutely. I think that the work's been done. Leslie has been involved with this kind of thing. Hiram's very much been involved and aware of these kind of projects, and to be able to illustrate them to a potential landowner, developer, and general public when necessary could facilitate that first win.
So I'm just sort of looking at it and saying, okay, if that's where we want to be 12 months from now. And again, I'm not talking about groundbreaking,
Mm.
everything built, but we're setting the stage for that.
Mhm.
What do we have? Well, let's work backwards. What has to happen? And what's our role in trying to make that happen? And any thoughts about how we need to look at that?
I go back to the beginning where we started, which is have we got on the books what we need for thoughtful development to encourage in general the ability to do smaller things if we wanted to? And I don't know the answer. Maybe we do. But I know I don't know for sure.
Hiram?
So
Yeah, I think we
that,
can,
yeah.
yeah, I think we can have a little bit of tweaking with regard to a small lot, a small house zone that we could add. We could talk to the commission about some of these changes that we talked about in the beginning and add that in as part of it. Creating a small lot zone, small lot development zone would be appropriate. I think that would be probably the only addition that I would talk about. And then some tweaking to the existing regulations that we have on those other sheets, Alex.
Okay, that's good. To me, that's good. And then hearing what P and Z would want us to do, if anything else, about, because we're their advisory committee. But at some point, and going to see some stuff, and then we'll see naturally whether that leads
Right.
to a group of people that will actually want to do something like this. It
Yep.
would be apart from this committee, but it would be, just put a different name on it, whatever. Yeah.
We have some of that spelled out in the POCD.
A little bit. I think that we need to talk about the new
Right, yeah.
POCD at some point in the near future here, but
Yes.
anyway. But I think that putting together some sort of a short series of video clips from these places that I mentioned to you, I could do that pretty easily. And I think that getting something like that together in the next 6 months would be probably a good place to start showing people what it would look like, what it could look like, and what it would feel like if they were to live there. Um,
Yeah.
I think that would be very helpful as well.
Okay, so if you're saying, Hiram, that we can probably work within the existing regs, or planning and zoning can work within the existing regs. If an appropriate plot of land got identified, and so you think we could probably facilitate the development of four smaller units on a 2 acre lot or whatever.
I think there's probably at least one little tweak that needs to be made to the lot size zone. So if we had a small lot zone, something like that, that could be put together, wouldn't be a huge change, but I mean, a small amendment to the regulations would probably be a help, Alex.
Okay, and would that require P and Z going through public hearing?
Yes. Yep.
Okay,
Definitely.
all right, so there would be an opportunity for comment and.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Okay. Um,
And I think we need to be very careful how we handle that. Again, using Woodbridge as the example, that they pushed it through in Woodbridge somehow without a lot of
Yeah.
public input and
So what I'm thinking is that you can't just be coming with a blank piece of paper saying, this is what we want,
right.
create this little small house zone.
Mhm.
And we'll trust us, we'll kind of tell you what's gonna happen. I think we need to have some sort of, it's not just the videos we're taking, whatever, but at what point, and the one question is who's engaging with the developer, but at what point is the town working or P and Z or us working with a developer to say, we really need to be able to show. So when this public hearing is going to take place for this specific project, it can't just be a blank slate. We really have to show what's going to be happening.
Yeah.
Can I ask Hiram a question along those lines?
Yeah,
Hiram, which, are we better off to have a parcel and a person and then make the amendment to the regs? Or
Yeah,
make the amendment
I think we could do it first. I think that graphics are really important when you have a regulation change like that. So to have some decent graphics, some really nice graphics to show what a potential development would look like is really helpful. I don't know that you need to land it specifically on a specific parcel at this point in time, but I think if we wait that long to get a specific parcel, we may be pushing it out too far. So I think if we get some good graphics together and get a little regulation together and bring that to the commission and say, we'd like you to consider this, integrating this into the regulations, I think that might be the way to start it. As long as the graphics are good, I think that's going to help to be a big help.
yeah.
And Hiram, do you have, were you thinking of asking Jocelyn to set up an actual visit with things? Or is there a way, if you let me know if there's any way I can be helpful, because I know the folks at Cornwall and Kent and Salisbury and stuff, so.
Yeah, I've talked to her many times about the you know, a
Yeah.
sort of a trail that we could follow, and I think those were some of
Okay.
her suggestions. So, but I'll be glad to get back to you, and if we set something up, my sense is that we could take a Saturday and do it, and somehow maybe end up at some place for lunch in the meantime, at
Yep.
halfway
Yep.
through or something.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Oh, that'd
It's
be
fun. It's
Hmm.
great to do it. You kind of come away feeling like, well, if they can do it,
Absolutely,
why can't we?
absolutely.
It's good
You've
stuff.
been to those, any
So,
of those towns?
Okay.
I've been
So
in the
pretty
towns,
similar.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
And
they're
you
I'm
totally-
gonna
wouldn't,
keep
you wouldn't know
trying to
where the
peel
affordable
down on
housing
this
is.
right now.
That's the success.
I know,
That's
right?
why.
We're gonna get the tour together. We're gonna get some
Yep,
visuals of what could be.
Yeah.
So we're gonna be able to create that. Hiram, I don't know if that's
Maybe
enough
for
in
lunch for the
terms
tour,
of
so
being
that
able to
weather
have
is
the
less about it.
discussion
yes, yeah.
at a public hearing about this is what we're talking about with the small lot zone. Or whether we need additional graphics, or at that point, you have a potential developer saying, give us examples of different kinds of structures that
You
you
wouldn't
created.
have that in time if he's gonna create the zone now. It would be,
Okay,
yeah.
Yep.
all right.
We got enough to do. We gotta meet with P and Z. Alex, you're keeping us busy. Come on.
Well, I'm also wondering if the P and Z commission says good, Carol, you say good, Board of Selectmen, you're all on board. What's our role?
Well, this committee at some point is gonna stop being an advisory committee to P and Z unless they want us to keep doing stuff, right? That's what we are. If some of us want to tail off and form a nonprofit and actually do some stuff, that's a different thing.
Right,
But I'm not pushing it. I'm just.
So I
saying
just
that
wanna-
That's a fork on the road a little bit.
but I wanna make sure, I mean, I think I'm thinking the same way, but do other members of this committee feel like that nonprofit should be a separate entity and not something we morph into?
Well, it has to be a separate entity legally.
No,
Yeah,
that I
yeah,
understand,
yeah,
but I mean, in terms of the makeup, membership and stuff like that,
Yeah,
Why can't we morph into that?
you could.
sure.
I'm,
And we could add people.
it's not the way I
Not
was
everybody
thinking
has to
about
do
it, but
Mhm.
doesn't mean it can't be
Right.
that way. And I'm just kind of curious as to,
Yeah, I know nothing about being part of these
Yeah.
things, so I'm gonna say I just truly I don't know. Okay,
Yeah,
that's
that's
like
cool.
that
Yeah.
like I have no like prejudices or anything. I'm just like, I'm saying because I don't know. So
Yeah.
I don't.
That's right. And I think, you know, in my experience, helping these things get started, you have 3 or 4 people that say, we're gonna do it, we're gonna incorporate it. And you invite people to sit in, and then people figure out, do I have a place in this? It doesn't feel right to me.
Right.
No, but I have so-and-so who's my neighbor who I think would love it. It just grows. It's whatever it needs to be, you know, and
And that,
nobody has to know now. This is very abstract and who knows, you know? So,
It really is pretty organic. I think it needs to be, have that feel to it, and I think that's the way it'll work best. Absolutely.
yeah.
okay, and that nonprofit, what's the primary mission?
Well, I got a whole bunch of mission statements if you want to look at, I mean, it's.
I mean, again, they're
Yeah,
gonna form
it's
it,
just-
I mean, what's
it's
the
to-
thinking as to, what's their initial focus?
It's essentially, most of them say a very short paragraph and I can share them. I mean, it's like 2 sentences, like the groups in Kent or Cornwall or Sharon. And they basically just say to preserve a community by helping build housing that promotes and supports economic diversity. Something like that.
Mm.
It's, you know, it is preserving what is slipping away through market pressures, and it's actively working to try to create economic alternatives in terms of housing.
Okay,
And there's language around those things, and you know,
okay.
it takes about $100 to incorporate in the state. So
We're almost up to an hour, got a few minutes. Any other comments, questions, thoughts that have been raised that people want to put on the table?
I have a question.
Yeah,
Yeah, Hiram, you mentioned that maybe it was something concrete, like graphics, illustrating a potential, maybe based on some of the things that we're gonna go look at, but that would illustrate a potential a potential development in a
Mhm.
small scale. Um, do we have somebody in town I, that might have those kind of skills to create something like that, that would be an advocate towards the idea of creating it?
you mean a picture, a representation?
like an architectural rendering or,
Yeah, I'm thinking of the architect I spoke to, trying to remember his name now, I apologize, that I spoke to about would he be interested in being part of a nonprofit? The one that's built his own house, I've spoken to Mark, I think.
Oh, Mark Haas.
is
Yeah,
that,
Ah.
that's
and
one that's on Hatfield?
yes,
Yeah.
and I wonder if he
Awesome.
might be willing to do help
Darn.
towards that end.
Yeah. Are they South African or Australian?
Is there something? I
Yeah.
don't know what they are. Yeah, Colin.
Okay. If you have his name and maybe you and I don't know where he fits at this point, but it's always good to have potential resources to be able to tap into.
He's
Mhm.
interested in becoming involved if we have a concept that, I can present. And if it was even just to do a project like this for a potential nonprofit, I think he'd be interested in hearing about it.
Okay, that's great. Um, so I'm gonna try to do a quick recap. So what I'm hearing here is, we're gonna try to plan a road trip. We're gonna document that in some way, fashion. We're gonna have a meeting with planning and zoning to kind of share with them where we are and what our thinking is, at least short term. Invite them to participate as members of the field trip. Um, the map, we really didn't, so for those not here, that the map that has been done is sitting on the table here. Carol is approving the new version of the map.
Good.
So we will have a version that will have not only RWA on it, but they are also going to add the airport property
Good.
right up here. That never got added because somehow in their records, it's indicated it's owned by the volunteer fire department.
Good.
So, so we should have a pretty comprehensive look at non-privately owned, and I'm counting land trust as being
Yeah,
quasi non-privately owned property.
that's good. That's good.
So that's something that maybe we spend a little bit more time at our next meeting.
And I think the other thing else, which I think we've already talked about to death, but it's making sure Hiram helps us with any technical cleanups on the existing regs or promoting a new possible smaller lot thing with an eye to the plan of conservation and development at some point too, if we need to give some feedback to
Right.
P and Z about the housing side of that.
So to that end, Hiram, I mean, what I envision is that you would obviously be part of that joint meeting between our committee and planning and zoning.
Mhm.
And one of the things I hope that comes out of that is if there is any sort of overlap or you know, where they're saying, yeah, we'd like to look at this kind of stuff, that you could help them.
Mhm.
I mean, I think it's better for you to work directly with planning and zoning on how to tweak regs as opposed to working with us, bringing it to planning and zoning because
That's fine.
you're
don't-
the guy
Sure.
anyway, so.
Yeah, well, as long as I can hear both ears, so I got P and Z ear and I can, no problem at all. I'll put it together for you.
Okay. Um,
Great.
all right, so I think I've got a pretty good idea. Any other comments, questions?
Good meeting.
Okay, well, thank you, everyone. Really do appreciate the time and the effort. And I will get back to you once I've talked to the planning and zoning folks about potential dates for a joint meeting.
Right.
And hopefully Hiram and or Leslie for the next meeting. If not, I mean, if you come up with proposed dates for the Litchfield tour, you can send them to me. I'll shoot them out to everybody.
Do a
But
doodle poll.
yeah, we do.
That'd be a good way to do it, yeah.
Right.
It's just a matter, Hiram, of which, who makes the contact, so, cool.
Yep, absolutely, sure.
All right. Well,
Right.
thank you so much, everyone.
Good
Take care.
Okay,
Yeah.
good night. Thank you very much, everybody.
night.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Can I have a?
You need a motion to adjourn?
Technically, we're supposed to have a motion to adjourn, but I'm
Motion
not
to
going to worry
adjourn.
about that.
I'll second it.
Okay, we're adjourned.